this conversation or the entire exhibition is powered by Creath. All right, without further ado, let's get into the questions. So we're starting with you, Mr. Chuma, first. This one you're putting your hands over your face. All right. So, what inspired the theme Ifebube for this exhibition? What inspired the theme Ifebube for the exhibition?
Okay, thank you for that question. It's pretty simple. Ifebube is what it means when you translate to English is a marvelous sight. When I create my work, I always look out for inspiring that effect in people that would be the wow, right? And that's like wow, magical. It's Ifebube. But deeply, it also means something that the vessel upon which I came to this earth. It's my mother's name, and she was the one that I got the art talent from. And the opening of this exhibition was 25 years she passed. So I was also using that to honor her and tell her story. So it was just like a great match for me to celebrate 25 years of her passing, but also to then showcase this thing that I intend to get that elicit wow from people. So it's just a match. And then, of course, my work is centered around identity, and I make a very conscious effort to name and use themes that are my first language, which is Igbo. Yeah.
Okay, so can you walk us through, the creative process from its inception to, execution?
Okay, so my art is actually a sum total of my experience as a person so far on this earth. I did practice design for about 15 years, professional design in advertising, and then had a degree in product design, right, industrial design, and did run my design outfits up to 2021. So left Uniben 2006 and didn't practice art. And then COVID happened. I think COVID was what reset a lot of us, a lot of people, and put them back on the right path or on the path that they are supposed to be on. And coming into the art world, originally trained as a sculptor, metal work and wood, and having had a stint with some brush off again with the Soka Art School, some persons there, that kind of influenced my work. So traditionally, you would see that my work has evolved the line art, the Igbo Uli line art. So I'm pushing that forward because I'm trying to create something around identity, knowing very well our past as a people and how we try to get our validation from foreign assets, foreign cultures, right? So I'm trying to tell that story with what we have, right? So I coming into arts, I was like, okay, so what do I create? What do I create? I do paneling. I like the aspect of my cultural arts that is on panels, right? Telling stories. And that came from one bit. But I'd also done this whole years being an art director. So digital design was like next nature to me. So that also came in. And I'd used a couple of very precise machines to create work in that career as well. So that came in as well. So trying to bring all of that together to create a piece of item that when we see it, we're like, wow. So this is me. This is Egungu from my village, right? And this is I'm proud of it, right? As a black person, as a Nigerian, as an African. So that's where my work sits. And I put together all that to then give birth to a new art form, right? So I started out digitally. I would draw on paper. I very much like the smell of ink, and I would then scan it because I was very adept at painting digitally as opposed to painting on canvas. And then I started painting digitally. And then somehow it turns out that this thing that I've now done digitally can still come back to physical. right? And that brought me back to my original, which is etching on wood and paneling, carving on wood actually using chisel and paneling. But yeah, this is 2024. How do we push the envelope? And that is how you are now seeing that combination to bring this. And then I'm thinking, today we live in a digital world. I mean, if you even look at the audience now, some people are still in the digital space, connecting, communicating with people, and it's become our reality. It's not going to go anywhere. And I started thinking, how do I ensure that my art can be experienced across those planes of existence, physical, digital, and what are the possibilities in that? So yeah, that's how this came to be. So I started out drawing digitally eventually because I found that scanning and all of that I lose details. So I ended up drawing quite in detail by hand, digitally, and then use technology, the laser lights to then etch on wood and then finish up painting by hand. So now having done that, I'm now seeing spaces where what can I do more with the digital space? And all of this is being presented as one piece of work, all interconnected. So the physical links to the digital via a QR code, and the digital is connected to the physical because it is the framework upon which the physical is created, right? And then this was also drawn manually by hand using a digital tool. And I think that's who I am as a person, what I've practiced, right? So now I'm in doing full-time art practice, and it's I think what I'm trying to say is that it happened over time. I didn't like sit down and plan. I was just doing this and I'm like, oh, okay, this is, and that underscores where I'm going because I can't even say for certain that in 5 years' time, I'll still do the same thing. Maybe another life experience, or maybe I'm just walking and I'm looking at those leaves and I'm like, how can these leaves come into? And then I just start doing things on nose, you know. How do we make them mobile? So I see that cusp of trying to experiment, or rather experimenting and seeing new ways art can be presented. But the underlying theme is actually the reimagination of aspects of our culture as a people to present it in such a way that when we see it, it's at par. So it's like what Afrobeat has done to the music industry, right? So before now, you would look at Afrobeat, you would hear Afrobeat and you're like, it's Nigerian thing. But now you are walking in London Victoria Station and Davido is slamming. Like the whole world now knows us. That's what I'm doing with art. I did say had an interview that I said I think my art is doing culture laundering. So yeah, that's what it
Okay.
is.
Speaking on, the cultural display on your works, what particular message are you trying to, convey to your audience or people who just try to delve into the aesthetics of your work from the first inception of, seeing it or interacting or rather engaging with it?
What message?
Like, yeah, like for example, I this piece right here is like one of my favorite piece. So what kind of message were you trying to pass from, creating this particular piece?
So I think I'm going through phases. I just describe one of them. So one of them is actually recording the context of the art. So one of the things that happen to any artwork is when you take it out of the gallery space or where someone will be there to explain the context, there's no context. It's left, it becomes very, very subjective, right? And there's no way to track or measure this thing except by the decision of XYZ aspects of the institute of the industry. So I try to see how I can. I've created work that the context will always go to with the work wherever it is. All you need to do is pull out your phone and scan. So that is available. You would never miss the context or get it misinterpreted. But it's also recording for future purposes because 300, 400 years down the line, I want people to be able to look at this and say, oh, this is a story. This is exactly in the artist's words based on his research and his experience. However, it's also open to interpretations. I mean, it's a work of art. So you can, I mean, that I a lot of people literally walked into this piece because they could see themselves. They're like, so what is going on? And a lot of it is also very free, fluid. It's like it just comes out. Yeah, there was a time I used to call my work, my art, my drawings spiritism or spontaneism. Like it just but again I tried to run away from those titles. Yeah. So yeah, that's the
Yeah.
it's open to meaning, but I've also put the context there just in case, so that we always have a baseline, a starting point where the conversation goes. And this is all using what is available in 2024.
All right. Speaking of, technology and having people scan QR codes, to be taken to a marketplace or rather a statement about the art piece, I wanted to ask you, I'm quite sure you're very conversant with blockchain. And I wanted you to tell us how, that has been very impactful in your artistic journey.
So I was one of those people that so I'd created a friend of mine. This is COVID, and somebody reached out to me and said, "I want you to create masks. I want to make them into um, puzzle game app for Black people in diaspora in America." And then I'm like, "Okay, so, uh what do you want? See, just 200 marks. These your drawings. That those your drawings. Those lines." I'm like, "Okay, this one." So I started like, "How much are you going to pay me?" We agreed on a figure, which was quite substantial. And then he paid. Like, this guy is serious. So I started drawing. And that took me down that rabbit hole of researching, going through the entire Africa and picking all the masks, their features, and then interpret them as in very minimal lines. This is my style, which is actually very natural to me. So it's always something I've just done um, as a child growing up. And when I was done creating it, because I needed to make them digital for him to use it as a puzzle game app to give the developers. So that's how I found myself in digital. And then after scanning and painting and presenting it, I'm like, hang on a minute, this is 100 masks, drawings, like detailed. This will form an exhibition. And I spoke to the guy, like, dude, can we? Because naively, me, I'd signed the copyrights to him. I'm like, let me do this exhibition. Let me just print these things out. And this was me, the designer, transiting at that point. And he said, yeah, let's go for it. And he sponsored it and we printed them and painted it. And then the next question, when people saw it, I'm like, you mean you did this digital and printed it? Have you heard of the blockchain? That's how I got to know blockchain. And because I also have a bit of uh, developer knowledge background, I did do some development, coding PLS, QL. I can read codes, baby codes. I can find my way around codes. So I got interested, and it was home to me. It was easy for me to understand. So I created my wallet and then jumped into it, and that again took me down that rabbit hole. I'm like, but this digital thing, where is the value? Yeah, I understand it, but I also wear the other people. Like, how does this guy understand it? And I remembered that I was actually a trained sculptor and I used wood, right? So that's how the wood then came. So unlocking more value, more use case, and is going down deep into blockchain. I began to realize that okay, this thing is actually going to be here with us. There's one newspaper clip where it said the internet is a passing fad. Some how many years ago? Headline. Well, I don't think it's a passing fad. It's here. And then the blockchain actually is the internet evolving. We're already there, but we don't know. I do spend money buying coins for my daughter. And I'm sure anybody that has a child here will know. Their currency is digital, Gen Z. So it's like, Daddy, look, I want to buy this thing so that I will play this game. I'm connecting with that world and I'm seeing that the future is this is how they will consume stuff, right? It's native to them and it's emerging. So I'm like, that got me real fascinated with seeing that all of this actually is then built on the blockchain. And the blockchain has then created a system where you can authenticate a digital file. And I must say this, it's actually complex, even for a very intelligent person. The concept of the blockchain is complex. So there's a way I break it down. It's like this classroom, everybody writes an exam and they submit their sheets. And I'm the lecturer. I take everybody's score, I give everybody their mark, and put it on one sheet, which is the master result sheet, right? And then I do photocopies for everybody and give everybody, this is your own copy, this is your own copy, this is your own copy. And that is a chain of records. Mine is the master. And then this guy wants to deceive his father that he didn't score zero in one subject. So he uses TPEX and create the alters his own and puts 100. But he cannot change the record on every other person's. Right? So this is one blockchain. To change that record, you have to trigger it in such a way that it will change on everybody's own. It is humongously expensive. And that is why they say the blockchain is immutable. You cannot change it. Even when you are now changing, the time that you make that change will also be recorded publicly for everybody to see. And it's one of the things that scares governments, right? Because when you don't apply that technology on things like banking and record keeping, sensors,
They lose
you
authority.
begin to see, and that's the pushback you are getting from things like cryptocurrency and stuff, because they know that if we use this technology, it's going to cause some ruffle. So I find that characteristic aspect of the blockchain very interesting, and I think it can lend itself to art, especially as regards democratization, right? Opening up a whole new art market. Because again, if I think that I have to spend $5, $10 to help or for my daughter to buy a skin or something, she's already an animator doing stuff, creating art. It's so I'm from that school of thought, but I'm also then very grounded in the traditional art space of making stuff, be using my hands, very tactile. I'm actually very, very, very. I mean, there's a point in my life that I went to somewhere in Ireland to spend 3 months learning carpentry. So I'm a very hands-on person, like making stuff. So I try to bring all of that together. And then because the blockchain has created a system of authenticating one file, even though you can have 1 million copies of that file. In fact, the more copies you have, the better. Because people will then be asking, where is the original file? I want to see the file that has the original metadata because I can read it and know that, oh. So there's a guy that created a work they call Redman. That work is millions of copies. It's made
Quite
him
popular.
exactly. But the original one, we all know where it is and who owns it and for how much. So it's giving it a serious value. It's just that the technology also lends itself to a bit of other things that we will shy away from. So what I've taken away from it is the record keeping and the immutability of the blockchain. As so, I mean, I can go on and on with blockchain. Is something that um, we also did in terms of training people and teaching them how to use this. Because at the end of the day, it's where we are going to go. We are already there, even in terms of shopping and stuff, and even in music, right? So yeah, I really, really enjoy it. So while I'm experimenting on the material aspect of things, I'm also doing experimentation in the digital aspect of things. Yeah.
I think that right now the major reason why people don't really have a lot of knowledge about the blockchain space is how it actually came into the Nigerian scene. And, there was a lot of negativity that accumulated from the way it was being used, transacted, sold by people that didn't even really have real knowledge of the background space. So they just like altered the entire, solution that blockchain was trying to provide. So a lot of people have shied away from that conversation because they don't really want to know what it's about. Most people just feel like any solution that comes from blockchain is most likely a scam. You understand? So they try. I'm sure a lot of people who have interacted with blockchain here have had one story or the other, or NFTs rather, if we're quite conversant with that. You know, they've had one story or the other to talk about, or maybe when they bought it for like $500 and now it's like $50 or $5 or something like that. So those kind of things without prior knowledge has, made people just back away that, okay, blockchain could actually bring real solution into, you know, our technology generation right now, like the kind of generation that we have. And most people don't really know that diving into blockchain really just gives you access to the power of decentralization, right? You were talking about banks and, how if we start to integrate these things into, our banking systems, music systems, even voting systems, I think is something that we need to pick up because it will be hard for, I'm sorry I'm driving into this conversation, but I've been really meaning to talk about it because blockchain is so vast and you can tap into it into, in a lot of ways that you could imagine. So, could imagine and never imagine actually. So, I just wanted to ask you, what other challenges, were there any major challenges you faced while, trying to create some of these works, and how did you overcome them?
Okay, so the biggest one I would say is which is very normal with anything new that is being introduced. There's always going to be resistance. People are going to be like, no, please, I beg, let's play it safe, right? But I'm not the one to play safe. I'm like, you know what? Let's die here, right? So that's been the biggest challenge because again, coming from that word blockchain, in fact, nobody even wants to go near the word NFT because it's just, please, I beg, don't come and, you know. But it is what it is. It's here. It's unlocked value already. And you're beginning to see sex, even the Security Exchange in America is now trying to, right? I lived in Kenya for a year and I was there when they released their digital policy paper on blockchain. So they've actually accepted it. And Nigeria has actually done something. But Nigeria went as far as issuing e-money,
E-money,
if not
e-token.
e-naira,
Okay, yes,
which
in
I
there.
faulted because again, the value of the blockchain is that openness.
The
Good.
decentralization.
So when you now come and say you want to do blockchain, but you don't want us to see those records, I'm sorry, it will fail. So I knew it was going to fail from beginning. The only way it would have worked is they put it on an open ledger where every Tom, Dick, and Harry can access it. Then we know we have issued 1,000 tokens for each, and each token is 1 naira, it's e-naira. Then we can start trading with it, right? And I think this thing is here because we still do paper money, but see, we have been forced to. We've actually gone digital now because there's no cash, quote and unquote, right? In the whole 1 year that I lived in Kenya, I think I had some cash, but it was basically in my pocket. I never used it because everybody's just and they pay. Everybody down to the woman that is doing akara on the road, they have their pay bill number, you know. So it's that was the biggest challenge for me, like saying okay. The other one would be material, standardization of material, because again, if you are creating something this new, there's not been a record of saying what was done before, how long will it last, and I think where I've gone that route of using natural hardwood, for instance, which then had weight and shipping issues. Even also preparing natural hardwood into panels. There's also the technology gap, right? Nigeria, we all know Nigeria. It's just you're trying to. So one of the things that really, really does my head in is when I see lines that are not straight, and I see them a lot. So if even in this room, that whole line on the wall everywhere, it is just bent. So when I'm working, sorry, when I'm working with um, technical people, like okay, we are designing a house, we are building stuff, and I just marvel, why can't you just lay this block straight? Then the guy says, no, the guy when they do plaster go cover up. Okay. Then when the guy does the block, one go. The plaster guy comes and start applying different layers of plaster. You will still see that. So that issue of technical ability, uh, uh, possibility in Nigeria was a problem for me, and that was why it took me to be in another country to go through a process that standardized it. Another thing is power. I'm sorry, it did affect me because averagely, each of my work has between 1 to 6 million lines when you break it into vector points. It's a lot of lines. Right? I think I need to break my back drawing. To etch that onto wood takes averagely 12 to 20 hours.
Mm.
Please, who is going to run a machine for 20 hours in Nigeria? You must be a mad person, or you will charge an arm and a leg. Right? So it pushed me to a point that I had to also then get my own machine. And even with my own machine, I can still tell that, look, this is a lot.
Mhm.
So even the cost of creation is high. So technology, cost of creation, skill set. I've then gone to, in terms of trying to then standardize what the work will look like, start using pallet wood. Now, pallet wood is what is used in boxing, shipping crates. And I found an ideological tie with it in the sense that the same trade routes that the ships come through is what replaced slavery, right? So that which has been taken away from us, our human capacity through slavery, and then we are now being fed capitalism. Buy. I'm taking, so it's like upcycling that material, which is now standard because it's been treated to withstand the salty sea and the travels. So I picked that up and and then use that to create work. It's also become a material I can find anywhere in the world, right? Because trying to get to, you see different colors of wood and different, those are stages, different stages experimenting. But this is where I'm at now. So it also has a tie in the sense that I'm upcycling materials and I'm making a statement by saying, this thing that you dump at us, I would use it and an aspect of the culture to create something that has value and that would last. So yeah, those are my challenges.
All right. Um, Mr. Ugonna, sorry, let's switch over to you a bit. All right. So, what drew you to Ugonna's works for this exhibition? Yes,
What drew me
please.
to Gunna's works?
Yes, please.
Okay, what drew me to Chuma's work? Not to Gunna's work. I am Gunna.
My mistake, everyone.
Okay,
Sorry.
I understand, sure. Okay, so basically, I'm an art historian, so I know a lot of the timelines of arts. I know when something new is coming, and I have furthered art history into curation. And so, as a curator, what's my driving force is what is new. So, when I find what is new, I will look at the risk level involved and I will say, okay, I'm willing to take these risks if we can meet ourselves at a certain point. So, and I studied in Osaka. Osaka is called the Ulia School because after the war, when Uche Okeke took over as HOD, if you know a little bit about natural synthesis, the movement where you have Yusuf Grillo, Bruce Anabapaya, Simon Okeke, Uche Okeke, that started in Zaria. And their ideology was, let's not just do what the white man tells us. Let's go back home and find things that belong to us, arts that belong to us, and let's recreate them, even if it means using modern tools. So Uche Okeke started using charcoal and paper at first to draw uli. Uli now is, if you watch Nollywood epic movies, you see uli, but you don't realize it's uli. Those things they draw on the king's palace, they draw on their body, That's ul. I know the Northerners have their own, but in Igbo, we call it uli. You understand? So Uche Okeke brings that into painting and begins to paint with that. Obi Ojichukwu saying, he says, this is beautiful. Let's use it and tell stories. And Nako seeing it and say, we can move this thing further. But all of them we're just still doing drawings and paintings. So when I saw Chuma's work, I saw uli lines. I was like, huh? How is this in this straight? How is this in this complicated? How is this in this straight? He explained, it's drawn digitally. I was like, yes, something is new here. I've not seen an artist who have brought in significant change to the line, to uli lines, within the timeline of artistry, since the last 20 years. So seeing it was like, wow. And then he started etching it. I was like, that's another step forward. So that immediately drew me to his work. So I started telling him, okay, can we do this? Can we do this? Why not leave the faces? Why not even leave the maxes? Let's start doing something more abstract. Can you complicate it more? So that's basically the idea of what is new. That's what drew me to his work. As someone who comes from Willie, I saw something that is new, so I immediately lashed on it as a child of Uchokeke.
All right, thank you. Next question is, what story did you want this exhibition to portray?
In that case, you might have a little tweak with the artist because we wanted different stories at some point. I was driving him to put out the new. But at some point, we came to a bridge where he wasn't even understanding what was new. So the last work I forced him to put out was this work. When I saw the drawing, I said, this one must come. And with that, he saw people's reactions to this work. And he now came to me and said, Ugonna, now I see what you are saying. I wish all of them was something new. So the story I wanted them to take out one, for us coming from the academia, to start placing what he's doing within the timeline of artistry. That's one. So as now we have a catalog, we have documentation, a scholar can pick it up and analyze it and say, this thing we're almost forgetting. We have a contemporary version of it. That's one from an academic perspective. Then two is for the general public. Someone is trying to do something new. He's been hiding. Please, let's bring him out to the limelight. Yes, sir. Let's bring him to the limelight. Let's criticize him. Let's show him where to push further by sharing thoughts with him and having that interaction. Because exhibitions for me are a place of conversation. The artist really does not allow someone to come to their studio. Most artists don't do that, except if they trust the person. But when they bring that to exhibition, it gives you time to interact with them. And then you can see that by the time the person does the next exhibition or brings out the next piece, you will now be seeing that your idea that you shared with the person inside the work. I found out he was behaving that he didn't understand what you are saying, but he actually understood what you are saying. He's just left of an artist. So I think that's just it.
All right. So, as an art historian, I want you to tell us what hope you feel, digital art has, in our timeline right now. Like, what hope does digital art have in our timeline?
Digital art. The German philosopher Andrew Fletcher says something. Let me write the songs of a nation. I don't care who writes its laws. Philosophy has 3 levels of affecting human beings. And the second level of that is through the imagination. That is how people like Shakespeare took over the scene. And till today, we still have Shakespearean stories in our schools. So, in essence, when the white man came here, one of the things they tried to establish for us is the school system, where they were now trying to recycle your head with the school system. I won't go into the critical aspect of that on how that affected us because they tried to remove us from the arts and tell us what should be by saying, first of all, they started with, we don't want fine art in schools. Many of us don't know. The white man didn't agree fine art should be in schools. That's why someone like was Ainana Bolu is still reverenced to today because the white man wrote in his book that Africans were incapable of making art because we didn't do realistic art. So Ainana Bolu, all his life, fought to say, I can do art, I can draw somebody like you. But I was basically, my forefathers were basically doing art based on their philosophy, based on their culture. That is what influenced. That's why you see African art, the head is always big. And you, your own self, he was pointing to them, you, your own self, even your art is influenced by the culture. Because the queen in your art dresses like the queen. There is a clothing the royals wear. That's where you have red and blue, synonymous to the royals. So, the earlier we realize that art has a way, art in general now, that's visual art, music. You can see Burna Boy's music influencing your dressing style. You can see him influencing your thought pattern. Look at most of the slangs that come out generally. They have something to do with the music or an art something. It's not something that came out from parliament. The parliament didn't one day say, oh, let us start using steez in Nigeria. It came from somebody in the arts. You understand? So, and culture is transcendent. Culture is not something pinned on the wall. Culture is transcendent. The culture is gradually moving, and it has come from the cave paintings down to industrialism. We are in crypto. We are in digital art. We are in the digital world. You can make calls miles away with your phone. You can send data with your phone. You can send money to your brother abroad. Arts coming into play here because the digital world has come to stay. Art is the only way you can create aesthetics to the digital world. I don't know if you understand me in that aspect, but art is that is the aesthetics of the digital world. Without the aesthetics, the digital world will become boring. So as long as the digital culture is here and it has come to stay, art maintains a relevance because the digital culture will always need aesthetics, and art is aesthetics.
All right, thank you for that response. I wanted to know, the collaborative process with Creath. How was that for you?
Okay. At this point, I'm in dicey ground. Okay. But I have to be honest as honest as possible. At least to the public, they will agree with me. So we had OpenSea come up. We had different blockchain things come up. We had Nigerian guys who tried to go into it as NFT. I'm talking from the right aspect now. We have digital artists who tried, like this guy, what's his name now? It's missing my head, sha. I remember it. So we had some Nigerian guys who tried to go into it. But we create, I saw a Nigerian platform, a Nigerian based platform, blockchain, that understood aesthetics aspects and wanted to key into aesthetics aspects. So when Creath did Imagine Expressions, and I heard it had something to do with the blockchain, I was waiting to see. Because I'm always interested, I easily get bored. I can easily get, if something doesn't interest me, I'm moving. I even people invite me for an exhibition, I just walk around for 2 minutes. Nothing is interesting me. Nothing of interest, I'll just waka. I easily get bored. And that's why I like writing. So I was looking at Imagine Expression, I was like waiting for what would this thing look like. So when Imagine Expression came and went, I was like, this will have something to do, this will have something new in the scene. Boiling after that thing I said was new again. You understand? Was new. Creath was new. Creath was interested in aesthetics. So when Chuma mentioned that there's a partnership with Creath, I was like, I'm able to talk to these guys. Come, let's do this thing. So that was how the partnership with Creath began. And working with them has opened my eye. I was always looking forward to something that will open my eyes more to the NFT scene, to the blockchain scene, and so that I can try to see, okay, how can this thing influence art and how would this thing be placed in the timeline of art history? So working with Creath has opened my eyes to that in a participatory manner, not what I read now, because there's a difference between what you read on the internet and practical field work. So this was like field work for blockchain art for me. And it was a good experience.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Were there any challenges you experienced while curating this exhibition?
Challenges, of course, challenges is a part of life. What you should do is try to brace them, find the next ladder to climb, or find the next gear to put your engine in, and go to the top of the mountain. So, first of all, from the artist, I was having a challenge of trying to push him and him not seeing where I was going to, where I was taking him to. And at some point, I also realized I could no longer explain this thing. Let's just do what we have to do. Which creates challenges of trying to understand what will work and how it will work, what to do next and how to do it next. For example, in my last two exhibitions, I introduced the long label system. We call it the museum label system, where you have the descriptions of the artwork in the label, in this label. You understand? But with Creath, since Creath had a digital platform, I asked them, is it possible to put descriptions inside here? Then let it appear as QR code. You understand? So the challenge was me trying to create a merge between what I know, putting it in the blockchain, because I'm coming from a theoretical aspect or a traditional aspect in the sense. So trying to put it into blockchain, I have to study and also try to be innovative in my approach. So the QR codes, we are like, okay, so we can generate traffic for Creath through the QR code. So I don't need to put my work descriptions on the wall or even on the catalog. So even at the catalog, you now see the QR codes. So that was new for me as a curator. And that was the challenge I had to break through. And I feel, to the best of my knowledge, Creath was happy with the fact that I was even bringing something new to the platform in that sense of it. Even if it was new from my own aspect, they were like, I just woke up one night and thought about this thing. But they didn't understand it that way. But that's just it.
It was great working with you too. All right. The next question is: how do you envision the legacy of Ifebube in the context of contemporary art?
In the context of contemporary art, I have had galleries walking through that door. I have had my fellow curators walking through that door, and I have seen their reactions. You understand? And most of the Lagos curators are asking, Ugonna, why is it that you're always bringing something new? Like your last exhibition in Lagos, we were wild, and now you are even giving us more wow. Why is it that you're always looking for the new things ahead of us that are even in Lagos? I'm like, maybe just Kara, God's grace, Oluchukwu, like my guy will say, is God's handwork. So, how I envision Ifebube in the legacy of contemporary art is that, based on the reactions of my audience in this exhibition, based on the reactions of my fellow curators in this exhibition, I can say that they are satisfied and wowed about it with the artworks. You understand? They see it as something new, actually. And coming from an academic perspective, I see it as something scholars would like to pick up and write on. And once someone picks it up, including myself inclusive, and writes on it, then I have achieved my aim, because the book stays there forever. You understand? That's why you can still pick Uchekeke's books and still read, and then you know what's new. So once that documentation process is done, I feel as a curator, I did enough documentation process in this work. So with the documentation process for my own level, I've solidified its stay in the contemporary arts. With the documentation process, further documentation process from the press and the scholars, we would have a footing for Ifebube. So I'm not in doubt. There are some institutions where you go and then the press comes and they're like, we will just do them because they call us. But I saw press satisfaction in this. I saw people's satisfaction in this work. So I feel that it has come to stay. And Chuma Anagbado as an artist, as a full contemporary artist, brought, I've actually shown the mirror to the art world. Where it will reflect next, I don't know. You understand? I can only make guesses, but I'm sure the mirror will keep reflecting to corners.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chuma, the next question is for you. How do you see your artistic journey evolving in the next, let's say, 5, 10 years? What are we going to experience from you in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's thank you for that question. Honestly, if I tell you that I know, I'm lying. Because if I tell you that I knew about today, say 5 years ago, nah, it's not true. So I think it's going to keep evolving. I intend to stride that digital and physical realm as one of the key pillars of my work as an artist. I intend to unlock more values. I intend to see what is possible with within those platforms. I intend to go more into deeply into the into culture and representation. But one that stands out for me is I intend to, in terms of what I draw, I intend to, somebody will say that I probably need to move more into my feminine and be a bit more spontaneous and allow something come out. And I'm saying this because of the reactions I've gotten, especially with that piece and the other one there. Um, the process of creating them is something new. It's different from the rest of them here, in the sense that that is just me dropping a point and then just keep drawing. And then at the end of the drawing, I start finding patterns. I start finding what is inside. So that is more of like a revelation. I always say that I see my artwork complete in color in my head before I start drawing. If I don't see it, I don't start. And that makes my speed can be quite tremendous. Um, but again, before I start and be that fast, it's probably taking me like 3, 4, 5, 6 months of incubating it in my head. So there's a lot of creation going on that is not physical. And then it starts. So I don't know how this is going to play out in 5 years' time, right? It could be anything, really. But I know I'm very much interested in scale. I'm interested in public art, and I'm interested in fractionalization. So if you can put those things together, and you see in mathematics, when you do permutation, there are so many outcomes. So I can't tell, but it's going to be something that has all those elements. Yeah.
All right. So this question goes to the both of you. What have you both learned from this collaboration with, Create Innovations? Question is for both of you, so anybody can go first.
Okay. So I've done a couple of exhibitions. Um, I was at 234 Art Fair, and that was what got my work into um, the permanent collection of the Yemisi Shylon Museum of Art, and the way it was also received there, and what that opened up for me in terms of the art world and in terms of traditional art collectors being like, okay, who is this guy? What's this messaging? It's also part of the things that has propelled me into this space. Well, it's a lot.
I understand. I understand. Mr. Gunnar.
So I think I've already answered that question in my conversation, in the sense that what I've learned from Creath, the collaboration with Creath really. For one, I've had a field experience with blockchain and aesthetics. Sorry for using the word aesthetics, arts. You understand? I've had a few experience with the blockchain. With Creath, I've had a few experience with the blockchain and arts. And I can now sit down on my work desk. I can now lie down on my bed, looking at the ceiling, and as a curator or as an art historian, I will start thinking about, oh, what's the future of this thing? How can we take this thing further? You understand? Since I know that the digital world has come to stay, the digital culture has come to stay. Nobody's doubting that. If you are still doubting that, I God be with you. You understand? God be with you if you are still doubting that. You understand? So, but with me, for my own field, I'm looking for how this thing can make sense. So arriving of NFT, I saw something make sense, but it was bastardized, unfortunately. So I went back. But with Create, I saw a platform where I can talk with the tech people on a face-to-face level. And we can have conversation and we say, okay, let's project this thing further this way. So with that, I can bring in my own industry, and them not knowing much about my own industry can also bring their own industry, and then we'll meet at a gap, or we meet at a level. So I think that is it for me. I
All
think
right.
that's it for me.
I think I'd just like to add that I'm very very passionate about creating from home, right? From local, from us, and anything that is not imported is where you would find me. And I think that we create. I've seen the possibility of building with a Nigerian company that is global, that is thinking global. So it's a natural synergy. It was just a natural synergy. When I saw Create, I'm like, this company was created for me now. These people don't represent me. I don't know who they are going to represent. Like, what your description as a company is talking about what I'm doing. So we should be in this thing together. And I'm glad it happened. Yeah, I'm glad it happened.
We're happy to have you on board. Before we go into our quick A&A session, just give us your final thoughts and message that you just like to pass to everyone.
Okay. So final thoughts. First of all, thankful to the Create team. Really, really flying to Lagos and seeing a group of young guys. I knew they would be young guys, but there's always an ephemeral thing within your mind if you've not seen something. If you've not seen something, no matter how much they tell you about them, no matter, you cannot predict what I look like just by my voice. In fact, video call just does about 50 or 70% justice to that. Because with video call, you cannot even ascertain what my height is if I'm not standing up on the table. I can just be sitting on my table and just be rolling. And then, you understand? So coming in and meeting a group of young guys, and the way you are passionate about what you do, I was like, yes, at least this is vision. I don't have one old man interfering with my thoughts. I can just pull out my thoughts and if we execute it the way I want it to happen. So it was good working with you, and it's something that I want other artists in. There are several digital artists. You understand? As much as they feel that the money is abroad or that the money is in a abroad platform, if we support our own, we can do better. If you support her. Speaking with Chuma, I go out with Chuma sometimes, and then he's telling me this thing cannot happen in Kenya. This thing cannot happen in Kenya. That's what he's busy shouting every day. I'm like, okay, calm down. Calm down, calm down. Mombi, I've not been to the Kenya with you. You understand? But Kenya is Africa. You understand? So I speak with my siblings in Ghana, and because I try to ask them, okay, as someone who is in university system, they say Ghana has this, Ghana has that. My siblings in Ghana don't say um, up NEPA. That is, they're taking the light off, they brought the light. They say power off. Like, no, there's a way they say it. They say lights out. And that's hostel term. Lights out means that it was intentional. Like, this is an intentional act for my father to go. Daddy has put the lights out. I'm like, it is NEPA factory that got the light. They don't understand that. So when they entered the university, I said to pick them and say, okay, what's the difference between the university here and here? I tried to have conversations with them. And I understood it's not so much it's just about the systems. The system is, you understand? And if we, the young guys, can begin to take the front line of things, I know it's difficult to find opportunities to take that front line, especially when it has to do with funding. But then you have some guys still pushing. You have some guys never say die. You have some guys never say, we do things and then we don't. And I think that's even why I'm still here today, because we've done several things and then there's no profit, but we never say die. So that's the thing. You understand? That's the thing I want every young guy to know. Digital culture has come in your several industry, the industry you are in, even as the fashion designer, find a way to enter into the space. Be creative with it. That Met Gala is going on. If you do Met Gala, let me tell you something. I look at the fashion shows we do in Nigeria, and there's a problem. We are copying Met Gala. We are copying several shows we see abroad. Nigerian man never wear basic clothes for himself. You dey tell am make him buy burger clothes. It doesn't make sense. We are losing our cultural value. Simplicity is nice, and there is nothing wrong with your culture. They have their culture to live in. They have their weather suits it. Our own weather, we should try to make things that are adaptable to our own weather. We should try to make clothes where someone can easily pull it off and then it will still remain a full clothes. Not when I pull it off and I'm not naked. Just using that as an illustration. You understand? So that's it basically. So the young guys, we have a lot to do. We have a lot of thinking to do. We have a lot of sitting down to discuss. Industries can merge. Industries can merge. That's one thing that at least the digital culture should make everybody see, that industries can merge. The pharmacists can discuss with the artists can discuss with the lawyer, and we'll find a gap and we'll build a better society.
Okay, so drawing from better society, because for me, that's like the end goal. That's the strategy. Uh, I'm a designer through and through, and I always think solutions. And I'm thinking, how do you engineer um, the black mind, the black people, to become innately developmental, to become solution? Because again, we cannot rule out the fact that we are heavily dependent on importation of not just goods and services, but ideas, uh, our entire value systems. Today we are fighting one value system, rejecting one, accepting another. And I think therein comes in art, right? Art plays a role in uh, social engineering, by then creating something that is very innate in the people that would then result in a culture of innovation, of development. I did mention about all these lines not being straight. I'm sure there are more people like that, right? That have a problem with how do we build a nation when we as a people in our individual units, we are not even building, we are just consuming. How do we live in our spaces? Why do we have a sitting room, a kitchen? Is that the construct of a living space that is good for our existence as Africans, as Nigerians, right? Is it productive for me? Should our houses be redesigned in a different way that it serves a different purpose, which would then make us become better humans? Because the question stares us in the face. How do we grow ourselves? We are obviously all going through a very rough time in Nigeria, and people are saying dollar importation and this and that. No, buy Nigeria, grow Nigeria. Even the Nigeria they say buy Nigeria is something that was imported, that just made here. How do we create that culture where people then start thinking? We call it design thinking. I would like to use that. But so one of the things I wanted to achieve with this exhibition is to start that conversation, to jolt people's mind and be like, make them live here questioning themselves and as to what am I doing? Why am I doing this? How does it contribute to the larger picture of all of us then becoming this way that would then result in our entire nation being a better nation? It's about improving society. And I think art plays a role. And for me, it sits, I would then pull it back one more step into spirituality, right? Because that is where everything is based. It is in the belief system that you then control the mind. And I think art allows me to do that. And that's the message I would want to leave with people, to people that have come to this exhibition, to go back, think, what have you seen? How does it affect me? How does it affect my work? What can I do to my work? Why are all of us painting on canvas, right? Which is actually a very ancient technology because it's over 300 years or so. Like, what other forms of expression? What other things? How can we make things with what we have, right? So that at the end of the day, we are self-sufficient, we are sustainable, and we can also then contribute our part to the global scheme of things. And I think that's where, uh, strategically, as arts, my work, focusing on identity is where I'm starting from. And I hope I've been able to kickstart that process, or rather contribute to that process, because it's ongoing already. Just I hope I've contributed to it significantly, and been able to push people to be like, okay, I think I can, I think I can try more. Yeah. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Mr. Chuma or Mr. Oguna?
All right. Good day, everyone. All right. I'm very happy to be here because I was seeing some of these works online and I was connecting already. And then that part that brought me here was really not spoken about because I really wanted hearing about it, especially from the person producing it. Okay, which is the cultural display I'm seeing all around here because I'm this person that was opportune to like my first background, my life. I grew up in a very local environment, so I am very familiar with almost the things I'm seeing here. I'm really connecting, especially when I look at this. It reminds me of some like I have mental picture of a thing like this, a tree as large as this where we gather around and all that back then in the village too. So does this thing have any connection to you as a person? Because it is not easy to just come up with pictures like this just on your head without having any connections to them. So, are these like personal to you? Are there things that you've witnessed and you would like to also put out to some of us who might have not had such kind of experience? Because why I'm saying this is I could remember we used to have people that would travel back home there and meet us in the village and they'll be asking us, uncle, why is this one like this? Why is this person? For some of us, we are not even familiar with the things we are seeing here. So please, I would love you to share a little on those things I'm seeing here.
Thank you, Ichiko, for that question. I'd like to thank you again for bringing the Beanie cap for me. This time around, I'm going to have it. Yes, the answer to your question is yes. These are actually personal experiences that I think a lot more people can relate with, right? Even though it's personal to me, but it's also communal, it's also universal, right? Um, so you're right. It's very personal. These are records of actual events, that is very, owned by us as a people, but it's also universal. So I start from where I'm from my own village, and then my immediate environment, and that's on one hand. On the other hand, there's also the 100% imagined, which is largely molded again by what I see physically. So I'm like trying to, how do I bring out that which I see vividly, right? Because I see, and I'm sure a lot of us do. I see things vividly, um, complete, like things that don't exist, right? But it's there. I see it. vividly, and I dream a lot. So it's a mix of both. It's a mix of both.
All right, does anybody have?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask, what did you like the most and what did you hate the most about working with this medium? Because I mean, like you said, it's a new medium and it's very interesting. I think the brown palette of the wood and the way, even before the engraving, sort of like, I don't know what that process is, but to have the wavy patterns is very interesting. But I just wanted to know, what did you like the most about working with these and what did you hate?
Satisfaction. I think satisfaction comes tops in me, really. Like that um pleasure of like I actually thought of this thing. I thought it in my head and this year I brought it out. Like maybe not exactly, or maybe even better than I thought about it. That I can control materials and processes and techniques, and this would result. So that satisfaction is there. The other half is people actually see it and it holds them spellbound. Like I'm like, okay, I don't know this thing that I created. If somebody is looking at it and the person is like yesterday, somebody was going in on that work. Like the guy was just like this guy is gone into the maze, right? But this is all just, um, what I've created, and I think that therein lies the power of art. It's beyond. It's fine. Yes, it's fine. That's like basic criteria. It's beautiful, which is also subjective. But what does it do to you as a person? Do you want to take it and put it on your wall, right? And then you're just like, I know it's expensive. I cannot take it, sha, but if I can, right? So that's what I derive. That people see it, and then that people can actually connect with the stories and be like, aha, if for the representative ones, for the abstract ones, people are like, it's educative. I say, okay, I know this story, right? Like the tortoise story. I know this story. It's been recorded. It's been represented in a way that you would consume it again. Because at the end of the day, this is really what matters in life. Right? This is the soft things. There's the soft things that help mold the hard things. So we need to start. We are in a world where everybody is not talking about mental health, mental health, mental health. It's mental health.
So my question is for Ugonna. Yeah. So from your experience, right, in kind of the arts community, the kind of people you see creating this arts and what you see people doing, right? What do you think is the future of art in Nigeria in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what do you see people doing? Where do you see it going?
Okay. Thank you. Let us turn to Ifa and ask Ifa. No, I'm just joking. Okay, so I was having something similar to this conversation last night, and there's a lot of artists. You understand? Galleries are popping up and closing. It's an undeniable fact. But what is good at and what is bad at? The artists might not even know. The artist might start off from a bad art perspective and keeps pushing till he arrives at a good art. You understand? So one is, as much as there's a lot of artists, don't be intimidated by the lot of artists. You keep pushing. That's for the artist now. And what do I see the Nigerian art scene turning into? The future of the Nigerian art scene. Yes, the government is beginning to have sense a little bit, in the sense that um, with some new appointments, they are putting in people that are actually have passion about the industry into those parastatals. So that needs to take shape first, because it is he that is in seat of power that directs what the general masses will get, no matter how much we say it. You understand? So because the artist can create, and with one pen, they will sign a bill that throws the artist off balance. You understand? Two is the Nigerian art scene is thriving, and okay, I can say this because the resort says it. The resorts, international critic Jerry Salt says that the white men are doing rubbish, that they are doing more of bad art now. And that has caused a zoom to Africa. So the lens of the international art world is coming more on Africa. I know that since the last 6 months, I know how many white guys have entertained coming through me asking for artists to pick up, that kind of thing. You understand? So the Nigerian art scene is growing. We just need legislation to solidify what we have. We just need a decision to solidify what we have. And that decision will come when the right guys who know and foresee the future enter those seats of power that border around the arts. For example, Nollywood. We saw Nollywood suffer. We saw Nollywood suffer. You understand? We saw Nollywood suffer. But at some point, when some guys had a round table and discussed and started doing strategic planning, you now begin to see a standardization of Nollywood movies. The same thing to the arts. We've always created good art as Nigerians, but we don't have the policies to keep them coming. We don't have the policies for the artists to survive. So that's why a parent will not want his child to do art. You understand? But with the artists becoming same people, one on their own aspects, dressing nice, you can now see an artist dress nice a little bit now, not looking like one madman on the road. Yeah, you can see artists dress nice. That is changing the mindset of the parents towards the art. You understand? And that once that is gotten right, every other thing will fit in place.
All right. Does any other person have a question? I like how you spoke about the culture of like the influence of the Western world on our own culture and how it has really been integrated and it has affected our music to our art and everything. For cultural importance, like for young people now, most of us we don't even know. Okay, this is where I can go to and know what has really been done in terms of what forefathers did in relation with art, like what you said, and we are still being heavily influenced by Western culture. We are being heavily influenced by Western culture, and it's really drifting. And it's really drifting what we are creating, like even our fashion, in terms of fashion. Right here. But even with fashion, it's really drifting what we are creating. I won't say we are losing originality. I will just say the cultural heritage is really being watered down. And for we young people, we appreciate the fact that, oh, there are people that are still doing things that will remind us of who we are. But it's kind of really inevitable because there's no proper structure of where we can go and say, oh, there's this particular museum I can walk into and I can see every current artist of this time, the kind of things they are making and everything. So I would say for young people, it's how can we really connect with our culture, our cultural heritage? If, especially for us that we've not had experiences of maybe coming from the village or something like that, how can we even search within to create something really like cultural that is connected to our heritage?
Okay. Um from I think the question boils down to the fact of the young man or the young woman who lives in Lagos, who doesn't have an experience of the village. How can you experience the village to be able to create something that is inspired by the village? Is that it? Yes. By the village, I mean cultural heritage in metaphorical terms. Now, so the thing is this: one, there are institutions. You understand? Unfortunately, the institutions on their own are growing. You understand? For example, I work with the Institute of African Studies, and we've started doing exhibitions, started putting out things. You can see that on my Instagram most times. There's an Instagram account for the institution, even though I want to build that properly. So some things like that are coming into the picture now. You understand? That will drive you because the only way this thing can, I say the digital culture has come to stay. You understand? So the only way the old can really be felt by people who are distant from it is by pushing it into the digital culture as much as we can. So then two is the young people have to read. It's not just about Instagram. You understand? You have to read. There are books written. When you look for them, you find them. You understand? You can reach out to some people who have those books and read. When you read, it's only when you read. Some of them are filtered down, quite all right, but you still have some that you can know where truth is and you can know where the truth begins and where the lie ends. You understand? So it's a tax because most of those things now that are artifacts or that are traditional culture in a sense are hiding in the museums. And these museums are mainly university museums or governmental museums. And there is nobody pushing them to the digital culture. You understand? But with people picking up interest and trying to find a way to push it out, we can have some of that coming in. You understand? On Instagram, on social media, and that's how you can feel that gap being bridged. Being bridged. Then you on your own part make extra effort not to be blinded by my uncle who is in the village waiting for me to come back and give me juju. Travel back home. You still have culture. The culture is still going on in Ngwa land. Some parts, actually, yes, some parts. But you can hear that the culture is going on. You can go back home, see it, stay 1 week, 2 weeks, have personal interactions with them. Don't be afraid of anybody. If you believe someone is killing you, that's when someone will kill you, guy. You understand? So travel back home because as much as I say they should push this into the digital culture without fear of copyright and everything, you on your own part have to make effort to try to fish out where they are. The Institute of African Studies is open. I'm there. It's open for anybody to visit at any time. I will explain to you whatever. We have Ikoro there. We have, in fact, doing the research work there, I found out that we have things from even other tribes, other cultures outside Nigeria, inside there. But before I came there, I didn't, me myself, I didn't even know it was existing. You understand? I think Ife has something like that also in their own aspect. So when these institutions come up and do their job with Gen Z mindset, then the Gen Zs will be breached. And then the Gen Zs should go back to the village. The cultures are still remaining. And then participate. Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for the Q&A session. Before we close up the conversation, I basically just want to drop one or two, thoughts about the entire conversation because, it was great working with Chuma and Creath as a company was very excited to work with Chuma because we haven't really found, we haven't really met a lot of artists, both, digital and traditional contemporary artists, who are interested in the NFT marketplace. And we as a company, we've been looking for ways to, bring solutions to the art community because we took a liking to the art community. And we just thought, okay, art ownership, decentralization, meeting collectors who would be interested in, in the blockchain side of things, trying to market artists who are interested in the NFT space, artists who wanted to reach out to collectors on a different kind of level. So it has been very difficult, trying to educate people because a lot of people have, gotten into the space without the knowledge. And here we are, trying as much as possible to, bring the knowledge to people, bring the technology to people. And we're really hoping that, we find our footing in the art space, in the art community. And, working with someone like Chuma is one of those things. And we're truly honored to have worked with Mr. Chuma. So thank you everyone for being here for today's session. Thank you very much, everyone. And that's it for the conversation.